This week I'm going to be teaching you how to make this lily of the valley flower. It is very simple and very delicate flower. You make all these little buds and you put them all together and you put them behind a lily leaf. I'm going to add the supply list in the description of this video. You will need a couple of molds to make this flower. I typically use Katie Sue Designs Nicholas Lodge collections of a lot of the molds when I make my sugar flowers, and there are also several other different ones on the market. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe. By subscribing, my channel will be placed into your library and you'll get to see my most updated tutorials. All right, let's get going. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to create the leaf, and the leaf will go behind the lily flowers. And I'm going to be using this Katie Sue Design mold for the leaf, and I'll show you what it looks like. Here's the packaging. It's a Nicholas Lodge Katie Sue Design lily mold veiner set, and you can make the leaf right in there and mold it at the same time. It's really a great set. All right, and then now what we're going to do, we're going to use a 22 gauge green wire, and I'm going to cut it in half because we're not going to need the entire one. So let's cut it just in half here, and I'll set that aside. All right, so the first thing we need is some kind of a mossy green, a light mossy green gum paste. Okay, and you want to make sure that you condition your gum paste. If it tends to be a little bit on the drier side, just add a little bit of shortening to it and massage it in. Sometimes you can put your gum paste in the microwave for a few seconds if you feel it's a little bit too firm for you. It tends to be that way for me. I do sometimes get arthritis in my hands, so I like to microwave my gum paste for a few seconds in the microwave. All right, so now we have it nice and conditioned, and we're going to use our size guide and use a number 10 ball. So we're going to get a little ball of this paste, and we're going to roll it, and we just want a number 10. We want it to push all the way through. So let's roll the ball. We're going to make sure it pushes right through. There we go. That's perfect. Okay, so now we are going to put the rest of it away. We don't need any more of that. All right, and then now we just want to roll it until it's very, very smooth. So there's no creases in it. There's a crease here. So I want to just roll it until it's super smooth. So we're going to roll it into a slight carrot. We're going to use this particular mold right here, the larger of the straight leaves. And with this set, you get a another piece, and you can put that over it so both sides of your leaf are veined. So we don't necessarily have to have it the full length here, but we do want to kind of roll it a little bit. And then I will show you why we're going to roll it. Okay, so you can just get it to maybe about 2/3 of the way up, so that's fine. Now we're going to get our edible glue, and we are just going to, just the top part, maybe about an inch down, we're going to add some edible glue onto the floral wire, and then we're going to push it through. So you want to push it all the way through to about 3/4 of the way up. You just kind of rotate it around, and then you just want to squeeze the bottom so it makes sure that it adheres. All right, and then we're going to flatten it out a little bit. We want it slightly flattened. It makes it easier to mold it into the form. All right, so we have our flattened area here, and we want to set our gum paste right inside. Then we get a cosmetic sponge, and we're going to just flatten it in, and we're going to mold it. And I use this cosmetic sponge. I learned how to use this technique from Nicholas Lodge. It's really great to be able to help manipulate the gum paste and get it to the complete size here. You have some down below. And you just want to keep massaging it in until you have everything covered in this leaf mold. And you want to be careful that it doesn't come out. And then you can start manipulating it with your fingers. Let me get this out of the way for a moment. And you can bring it down. And you just want to manipulate it until it covers the entire veining mold. And we have a perfect amount here. So we're looking good. And the reason why we put the wire in first is we want to be able to adhere the paste. If you make your leaf first and then you try to manipulate the wire in there, it's not going to work very well because this is a very thin mold. So it may come out on the other end and you don't want that. So then we just get our cosmetic sponge and we press it in, and you can also smooth it with your fingers. There you go. So it's completely covered in here. Now, you can do this step, but you don't have to. You can get the other piece and you just set it in there so it fits in very nicely, and you will press. And this part right here is the back end. The other part is the front end of the flower, or I'm sorry, of the leaf. So we want to make sure that we have both sides covered. It gives it a more realistic look. All right, so we have the pattern pressed in there, and then we're going to bring it out, and you just want to turn it upside down and very gently bring it out because you don't want the wire to show through either way. So this is the front, and what we need to do now is we're just going to give it a curl. Now I'm going to turn it to the back side to do this because you don't want to push the balling tool right on the front because you may lose some of the veining. So we're going to just get the balling tool, and this not only thins out the edges, but it also gives it a curl. So we're going to thin out the edges, and at the same time, we're going to be giving the leaf a curl. So you want to get that curl in there. There, and I think we have a nice curl. Now when you turn it over, you have some nice curling on the leaf. So the next thing we're going to do is let this dry, and you want to get one of your egg crates and you want to give it some movement. So I always curl it back a little bit, push this in here, and we're going to be placing the lily flowers into the inside of the leaf, kind of like encasing it a little bit. So you want to give a little curl, and we're going to bring this down a little bit, and it basically gives it some movement. Okay, so then we're going to let this dry overnight, and then we will give it a little bit of color and some leaf glaze to make it more realistic. Okay, now while the leaf is drying, we're going to work on our flowers. So what we want to do first is get a couple of 28 gauge green wires, and we're going to cover them with quarter width medium green floral tape. And what I did to get quarter width is I have a floral tape cutter, and this cuts in half, and then I just use either an X-Acto knife or a blade to cut it all down the middle in half, so I have quarter width here. So we want to get this stretched out and take one of our wires. We'll start with this one. And you just want to go down the line. You want to get it anchored. And then just pull it up so it's at the end. And we just go down the line and we cover it. And the reason why we do this now as opposed to after we cut the wire, because we're going to be cutting each of these two wires into 6s. And it's just easier to get it covered when it's whole as opposed to doing a whole bunch of small little ones. So we go down the line and we get it completely covered. All right. So we have one covered, and we do the same thing with the other. It looks like I'm going to run out of tape here, so I'm going to, instead of stopping halfway through, I want to just have a uniform covering. So I'm just going to take another one, and we can use that in a little bit. So now we're going to get the other one covered. We anchor it first, bring it down a little bit, and then push the tape up to the end, and then we just go down the line. This is 28 gauge green wire. For this particular project, we're only going to do one Lily of the Valley set, the leaf and the flowers. So we're only going to need to make a few of the flowers and the buds. All right, so they're both covered. Now we're going to get our floral wire cutters. Let's get this out of the way for a second. Okay, then we're going to cut this in half. So floral wire is typically 14 inches long, so we're going to make these into 7-inch long pieces. And they're not exact. Some of them vary. Now, we're going to cut each of these into 3 pieces. So I'm not really measuring, I'm just guessing. They don't have to be exact, so you just want to kind of estimate three for each section. They're going to be a little bit longer. Some are going to be may be a little bit longer, and some may be a little bit shorter. It is okay. It does not matter if it's not exact. If you're an exact person, then you can get a ruler, measure it out, and measure out your 3. But honestly, it's just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's slightly off. So I don't make a big deal about it. So I just estimate. All right, there. Now we have our 12 floral wires. Now what we're going to do at the end of them, we're going to create a hook at the end of each one of these. And you can do a few at a time. I have my floral wire little pliers, the needle nose ones, and you can do, I'm just going to do 3 at a time. And you just line them up, and you get the top piece, and you just bend them over. And since these are going to be small flowers, you want to kind of flatten that little hook. And all the hooks are for is to help grab the gum paste and hold it in place. Many of the flowers that we make a hook at the top, and it just helps hold the gum paste in place. Here we go. Okay, we have hooks on all of them. Now the first thing we're going to do is make buds, and we're going to do 2 different size buds. Now on our size guide, we're going to use number 3 and number 4. And so we will get our paste. We have already conditioned some, we're going to be using white paste, white gum paste. And we're going to be using this mold in a moment. But first of all, we're just going to make a few of our buds. Now we're just going to make 3 of each of these, so we're not making a lot of them. If you were making a lot of Lily of the Valleys, obviously you would make many more. I sell them in my Etsy shop, so I often will make quite a few of them. All right, so then we get a little, just get a few little balls, and you want them to be able to go through the size guide here, and that's still a little bit too big for it to fit through the number 4 size guide. And that's about right about there. And you don't have to measure each one of them. You just want to make them around the same size. And just so they are distinctive sizes. This one looks a little bit small still. Add a little pinch more. That's about right. Okay, so we want 3 of them in that size and then 3 of them in the next size over. Okay, so I have this little plastic. It's like a shot glass. I buy these in the dollar store, or you can also get them at a party store or on Amazon, and it just helps keep them from drying out. Let's see, we have 6 of those. I'm going to pull out 6 of our little hooks here, and we need our edible glue. And we're also going to need this companion tool. And the companion tool, it goes with the set that belongs with this. And I'll explain that in a few minutes. All right, so we're going to take one of our larger ones. And we're just going to recondition it again. If it feels a little dry, just add just a touch of shortening just to give it a nice smoothness to it. And you want to roll it into a nice smooth ball. Okay, and then we're going to take one of our hooks and apply a little bit of edible glue onto it and place the ball into the hook. And you want to pinch the bottom so it stays on. And then you just want to reshape this to make sure it stays in a ball shape. Pinch right here. Okay, and then we're going to take this companion tool, or you can use a rocker tool. You can use whatever you'd like, and we're going to make 3 lobes here. So we're just going to rock it down and just make it 3 lobes. There we have 3 lobes here. Okay, and then you want to make sure it's rounded up again. And you have 3 lobes, and then we're going to place it in our little drying rack here and let it dry. And let's do another medium one. Actually, I think that's a small one. These 2 are the mediums right here. I'll put this medium guy up there. Do another medium one. You can condition it, or if you have already conditioned it, that's fine. Just make sure you massage it into a nice smooth ball. You get one of your hooks, a little bit of edible glue, and you place it into the ball. And then you pinch the bottom so the gum paste adheres to the floral wire. If you need to, you can add a little bit of cornstarch to your fingers and then pinch it. This way the edible glue doesn't stick to your fingers. And then you just shape it into a ball. And then you get your rocker tool or your companion tool, and you just rock it back and forth, and you make 3 lobes. All right, so you have another one. So you want to make 6 of these. You want to do the 3 of the larger ones and 3 of the smaller ones. All right, now that our buds are finished, we're going to work on our flowers. We're going to make 6 of them, and we're going to use number 6 on the size guide. We'll condition this with a little bit of shortening. All right, so let's make 6 of these. Let's move this stuff out of the way. It's a little bit too big. So you just want to estimate how much you're going to need. And that's about right. As long as it can fit all the way through, that's fine. Once you get them made, make sure you place them under a cup or in a plastic bag, like a sandwich bag, just to keep them fresh. There we go. All right, so we can put the rest of this back. This is the Ultimate Flower Former Mold, and it's another one by Katie Sue Designs. It's a Nicholas Lodge collection. I use this very often. There's so many different flowers that you can make using this. And I did make my Pussy Willow branch using this also. There's a tutorial from last time. All right, so we're going to get this nice and smooth. And if you need to condition it with some shortening just to get it nice and soft, that's fine. And then we're going to use, out of these these are two bell flowers. And out of these bell flowers, we're going to use the smaller one. Now, to make it easier for the flower to pop out of the mold, I rubbed a little bit of shortening in here to make it easy. All right, so then now we're going to just kind of give it a roll so it's a little bit of a log, and it makes it easier to go in, and you want to push it into the center. You can get the cosmetic sponge to press it in and just make sure that it's all in there. And then you can get your scraper. This is a scraper I use, and you want to scrape off the excess, and you don't want to scrape it from one side to the other because it's going to pull up and out of the mold. So you just go about halfway through, and then you turn it around, and then you do the other half. Okay, and then you can just kind of pop it out. I just go around and give it a push and pop it out of the mold. Okay, so now we have this little bell here. And then what you want to do is get your companion tool and you just push it through the center. You want to make the center hollow so it's like a bell. We're going to get our pad, and you're going to put the bell down, and you're going to cup each one of these little petals. Oops, let me just get a little bit over here so you can see it better. You cup the petals. And another one. So you make sure all the petals are cupped. Now we have a center hollow, and then we have our petals cupped, and then we're going to place it onto the floral wire. So you want to add a little bit of edible glue onto the floral wire. You don't want to add too much. And then you're going to push the floral wire through the flower so it's all the way through, and just right about at the bottom, and you just want to pinch it so it stays on. Now, to help this flower stay on the wire, we're also going to put just a tiny little piece of gum paste in there, and I'll show you why in a second. And this is actually too big. You just want to get a little tiny bit into the center, and you just drop it down, and then you just kind of push it in a little bit. And what this will do is when the flower dries, it will adhere, that little piece will adhere to the flower, and it will prevent it from falling out. It's extra protection. And then we're going to get some stamens. You can use any kind of stamens you want. I have these little pearl ones, so I'm going to cut these. This is a perfect amount because we're only going to do 6 of these. And I'm going to cut the pearls off of the stamen. So then we're going to take one of our pearls, and we're just going to push it through. It's actually, the stem is a little bit too long. You don't want the stem long because you don't have a lot of space in there. And then what you can do to help keep it staying in there, you just add a little bit of edible glue, and then you get your little stamen and you just drop it in there. Okay, so you have one of your bells. Now what you can do is you can curl these over so they're just kind of closed a little bit. And then we're going to let that one dry. So let's make the rest of them, and then we're going to let them all dry. Okay, now that we have all of our buds and our flowers made, we're going to let them dry at least a couple of hours, maybe longer, depending on the environment you live in. If it's humid outside, you may need a longer amount of time. Okay, so once we get our leaf and our flowers and buds all dry, then the next step is to color them and put them together. Okay, so now what we're going to do is give this leaf a little bit of color. For the rest of the tutorial, I'm going to be using apple green and super pearl. Super pearl is going to be on the flowers. So we're going to add a little bit of apple green here. You can use whichever green you'd like. Apple green is a nice color, nice light color. And I just add a little bit just to give it some depth. And you can actually even use a darker green if you'd like to go in between. You can use darker on the edges if you'd like, whichever you'd like. If you wanted to give it more dimension and deeper look, you can just go a shade darker and just push it in through the grooves. All right, so we're going to let this go for a moment. And now we're going to assemble our flowers. So we have 6 buds here. We have 3 larger ones and 3 smaller ones. And then we have 6 flowers. All right, so let me just set this aside for a moment. We're going to be coming back to this. And this way, everything is out of the way. Okay, so we're going to start out with our buds, and we're going to use quarter width floral tape right now. We will be going back to half width shortly. So we're going to stretch this out, and we're going to start out with a small bud and another small bud over here. We're going to tape these together. We're going to put one up above. You want one at the top. This is the tip of the arrangement, and you're going to bring it around. Now you want them spaced far enough apart from each other that you can bring these down like a bell. So we're going to bring this one down here now, and we're going to curl them down like a bell. So we're going to go right and left and right and left. So we have this one over here. We're going to make a bell out of them in just a moment. And we have this one as center, and then we're going to go down to the other side. We're going to go to you want to go back and forth. You have one at the top, and then you go back and forth on each side. And you go down a little bit. Okay, so now we have left, right, and we're going to start with our flowers now. And we're just going to give them a little bend. We'll give them more of a bend in a moment. Now that we are down to our flowers, we want to give this stem a little bit more support. So I'm going to add a 22 gauge wire in here, which I have, since this is the second half of the wire that we used for the leaf. So we're going to push that in here. You don't have to go down far because we are going to make a bell shape out of these flowers. So you want to make sure you get a good enough stem on them. You don't want to put the stem too tight against the main stem. Now when you're going down, you want to make sure that it's going to fit behind the leaf. So you want to kind of get a gauge of a measurement here, because the leaf is going to be your backdrop. All right, so then we're going to just go down the stem. And you don't have to go too far down. We're going to be taping the leaf to the back of it. All right, so now we want to create a bell look to this. So we're going to get our pliers, and we're going to just bring them down to look like a bell. There. So you have lily of the valley flowers here. And you just adjust them to fit the way you want them on there. All right, so we have our lily of the valley stem. Now before we attach it to the leaf, we're going to color it. So we have our green, which we're going to use in a moment. We're going to get some pearl dust. And then we're just going to brush the flowers with pearl dust. Give them a nice brushing all the way through each and every one of these. And the pearl dust gives it that dewy look to it. Lily of the Valley flowers have a nice dewy look. And you do the same thing to a couple of these buds. Now the buds, we're going to add a little bit of pearl dust, but we're also going to make the top few buds look green. So they haven't really gotten to the stage of getting ready to open yet. Okay, so then we're going to get some green, and we're just going to dust the base of the flowers. You want to make sure that you can get around to all the flowers. You want to dust the base. Then the buds, we're just going to make them lighter as they go up. So the ones at the top, we want them pretty much green. Maybe 2 of them that are green. And then you go down the base and you just do very light green. So you don't want them as green as you go down. So the buds, you want to start at the top, you want them greener, and then as you go down, lighter green. And then the flowers themselves are just pearl. All right, now we're going to get some half-width floral tape, and we're going to bring our leaf over, and we're going to put these 2 together. We're going to get our half-width floral tape, and we're going to put our lilies, the flowers, kind of at the base where the leaf meets. So I want to bring these guys around. And anchor them in. My leaf is not quite dry, as you see here. I did kind of rush the drying process on the leaf to get this tutorial out to you. So you do want to make sure the leaf has plenty of time to dry. I would say at least overnight. Okay, and I think that's pretty good stem right there. I don't think we need any more stem there. And then I'm going to cut off the excess piece. And then we just make adjustments. We adjust our lily flowers. You don't want to put too much pressure on them or they will fall off and break. And there you have your Lily of the Valley. Okay folks, I hope you enjoyed this week's sugar flower tutorial and you get many uses out of these Lily of the Valleys. They are beautiful little delicate flowers and can be used in so many different arrangements. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Bye for now.